you doing? This is Barry Darsow. You better be watching and listening to 3 Count Wrestling, or else I'm going to kick your stinking teeth in.
Welcome back to Interactive Wrestling Radio. Joining us on the Newsmaker line right now is a gentleman who last joined us all the way back in 2006. He is Demolition Smash. He's the Repo Man. He's Crusher Khrushchev, Hole-in-One Darsow. There's any number of names you can call him, but I am going to introduce him as Barry Darsow. Are you with me, sir?
James, I'm here, and thank you. I appreciate all that. It's good to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you on, and of course, the reason we're having you on is to talk a little bit about the book, which is out. Yeah, the book, which is out now. First of all, one of the best cover arts I've seen in a long time. That's incredible, and the title is perfect too. Sickles, Studs, and Stolen Cars. Fits all of your gimmicks, all of the best known personas you've had. Let's talk about it. What was the process like of sitting down and writing this book?
Well, it's really tough because I'm busy as heck, and I'm out probably 2 to 3 weekends a month with Axe. We're out doing signings and meeting all the fans and just having a great time. So when I get home, I don't have a whole lot of time to be writing books, but a lot of the fans were saying, when are you going to get a book? When are you going to get a book? And this has been going on for a couple of years. So then finally I thought, well, now's the time to do it. So that's kind of how it all got started.
Are things like this, doing interviews like this and talking about your entire career and us fans getting to ask you questions, does that kind of grease the treads and get like the thoughts going? Or how has that process been as you wrote the book? What did we keep the memories fresh? Did we have any small part in that?
Well, yeah, and what's so hard about writing a book is, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. And I've had just a great life, with a family and, my wife and kid and grandkids and it wasn't hard to write stuff in there, but I got so many things I didn't know what to put in there. So when I started writing the book, I thought, well, I want to make it easy reading for people and just tell a couple of stories about some of my friends back home and some of the friends in the wrestling business. And I couldn't, I have so many thoughts going on in my mind. So I just kind of picked a few of them that were there. But it's hard when I read the book, when I look at it and I go, well, I could have added so much more to those stories to make them even better, but I didn't want to have 1,000 pages in the book. So I had to kind of stop somewhere.
I got a copy of the book. It was sent to me, and I've been reading through it. When you said 1,000 pages, I was picturing Bret Hart's book because his wasn't far off that, I don't think.
Yeah, and I mean that's what's hard is I got a million stories. What stories do you pick? It's just kind of the ones you can remember that are fresh at that time. And I don't know if where are you in the book?
I am about halfway through, so I'm right smack dab in the middle.
So have you got to the Ernie Ladd story?
I have not yet read and I can hear him in his booming voice in my head as you say that, but no, I unfortunately have not gotten there yet.
Yeah, it's like when I tell that story in the book, it's like I could have added so much more because when I was in the car with him, and I traveled with him every day for a long time, I used to just laugh, to myself because he was such a character, and it just, that was one of the stories I had to tell in there because he was a big influence in my life too.
Very cool. And you mentioned a moment ago your kids, and it just occurred to me, I also had your son on when he dabbled in pro wrestling, Dakota. Sweet kid. I wish he would have stayed with it because I think I enjoyed his work in the wrestling ring, and I just don't know why I wanted to mention that to you, but I wanted to mention that to you.
I appreciate that. And, right before he quit, he really was starting to figure it out because,
Mm,
it's a hard business to really learn, and I mean, anybody can learn the moves and all that, but to learn what actually to do,
mm,
he finally got to that point, and then it was kind of the end of the career. It just he called me up one day. He goes, "Dad, what should I do next?" And that was, Hulk Hogan just talked to him, and and Hulk told me, he said that he was leaving. I think it was TNA Wrestling back then,
mhm.
and he says, if I was you, I would move on and try to get your job back with the WWE at the time. And then he called me and said, what do I do? And I said, Dakota, just get out. He had a son at that time, and he always wanted to be a police officer. So that's what he pursued. And, he's, 10 years on the job now as a police officer, and he's incredible. So
That's
it was a good
beautiful.
move for him to get out of the business.
Beautiful. I'm glad to hear everything turned out well for him. You mentioned Hulk Hogan. Of course, I had this written down for a later question, but I'll ask it now. Any thoughts on the somewhat recent passing of Hulk, which, as a fan, is still affecting me, 2 months later to even hear or 3 months later now to say it out loud?
Yeah, unbelievable that it happened. That was a real curveball because I never ever thought that would happen at this time. Um, to me, Hulk was a great guy. Um, it's not like we were best friends or anything, but we were friends, and he was just a good guy to talk to, and really would do anything for you if you asked him. So it was a big shock when he passed away, and he was the one guy that I think really got wrestling up to the next level that it is. And all the guys that are in the business now need to thank him for getting them to the level they're at. That's what I believe.
Very cool. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Have you heard back any feedback from your peers that read the book
About the book,
about the book?
um, a few of my friends back home have read it and they've laughed and they love it.
All right.
So I haven't heard a whole lot of feedback from the other. I guess it's really doing well out there selling. So I haven't heard many reviews, but it's it's not going to be for everybody, but I'm just hoping that people enjoy it.
Absolutely. And I mentioned before we started recording, I'd ask you a couple questions of things that have happened since our last conversation a long time ago. And one of those things is that you're back to being friends with Axe. For a long time there, you guys were not as close. How did that process come about, and how did you guys end up burying whatever the hatchet was?
Well, there really was no problem or anything. It's just you know it it's like all my different wrestling partners I've ever had. I've gone my way, they've gone their way, and you just didn't keep in touch. And finally we had a show up in Windsor, Canada, and we were on the same card together at the signing, and we just sat and talked and said, you know what, we need to do a lot more of this stuff, and we've been friends forever. Let's just make it happen, and we did. And we've been together what 36 years now,
That's amazing.
37 years we've been, I've known Bill.
You're making me
So
feel old saying
yeah,
that out
I
loud.
mean that's a long, long time, and we talk all the time. And like I said, we're out probably 3 weekends a month. It's like I'm working again.
That's awesome. Um, Another thing that's happened is you guys have signed on with WWE again after all these years and all the demolition trademark issues and everything. It's all water under the bridge because you guys are back. What is it like being a WWE legend and having that contract?
Well, it's pretty neat. I mean, we went so many years with not even talking to anybody with the WWE, and we just kind of went our own way, and we were doing very well. And when we were kind of didn't know if we want to sign the Legends contract or not, and we really sat down and talked about it. And with Triple H in charge now,
Hmm.
it was like let's make it happen. They asked us, let's sign the contract and let's get involved in this again. And so they're going to come up with some action figures and do a few other things with us,
Awesome.
and it's pretty exciting. You know, we were up in the Hall of Fame ceremony. We were at the ceremony last year
Hmm.
and got to talk to everybody, and it was just like we haven't even been gone. You see your friends in wrestling, it's like you were just with them yesterday, you know.
Mm.
So it was fun to see all the guys and talk to everybody again. So,
Do you intend on or hope to be inducted into the Hall of Fames yourself?
well, you never know. I would love it. It would be fantastic. You never know what's going to happen. There's so many tag teams and
Mm.
single guys out there that that they could choose from. But I'm hoping we're on their list.
I hope so too. If you do go in, would you like it to be as just you and Dax, or would you like it to be the three-piece with Crush as well?
With Crush too, because it's the whole team of Demolition.
All right.
I think Crush deserves it too.
I think so too. I think so too. In fact, I'm going to be with Brian Clark tomorrow, which was his later tag team partner. So that's pretty.
Oh, yeah, Brian's the greatest guy in the world too.
Uh,
Say hi to him for me, please.
I will do that. Absolutely. One of the things that made Demolition so cool, and it's unfortunately another death question, which unfortunately seems to be a running theme today, was Rick Derringer's Demolition theme song for you guys. It was just awesome. It fit the time, but it also was a pump you up theme song. Was that a big part of the package, do you feel, of Demolition, and how cool was that theme song for you guys?
I think it was incredible. I think it boosted the Demolition up quite a few notches. Because when we first got together, they'd announce our name and then they had some kind of funky music and it just didn't mean anything.
Hmm.
But then once, Jimmy Hart was one of the creators of that also, and he did a phenomenal job creating that. But once they started singing, here comes the axe, here comes the smash, you had your own song. So I think with the people, it kind of, the fans, I think it gave us more credibility. And I think it really did help us get over big time.
Very cool. I agree. Um, so I guess the next question I would ask you, and it's coming from a fan, they asked the inspiration behind the faces you would make during promos. Obviously, the sticking the tongue out, maybe a little Gene Simmons, possibly inspiration with that. But was there any inspiration behind the surprised faces and things you'd make during the promos?
No, not really. And I never ever thought of Gene Simmons
Uh,
doing that. Um, we just we put red Kool-Aid on our tongues, and they were red, so that's kind of why we stuck them out, and they kind of matched the face paint a little bit, and it just tried to make you a little bit more uglier by sticking your tongue out. It's when you're the bad guy and you're a little kid at school or something, and you stick your tongue out at somebody, that kind of meant that you didn't like them or whatever, and that's kind of how we did it. But the faces were just something to do when you saw yourself on the camera when you're doing the promo. You couldn't just stand there and do nothing. So it kept you moving.
I thought it was an interesting question. That's why, because I would never have thought to ask that. And I'm like, I'm
That
gonna ask him that. That's a
that
good.
is that's the first right there, I think.
I try to, I try to throw a few of those in there, first time questions. Here's not a first time question. Last time around we talked, you told Andre the Giant stories. I won't ask for any detailed Andre stories, but it occurred to me that you were part of what was basically his last hurrah, his biggest final match. WrestleMania 6, you guys winning the tag team titles back from the Colossal Connection. How big was that for you guys to be Andre's last big opponent?
Well, we didn't know it at the time,
Mm.
and I was with him pretty much every day. We were in the locker room playing cards, and we were good friends. And he never mentioned that that was going to be his last match. So I don't know if he even knew that that was going to be. But after the fact and everything, that's a pretty big thing. And we wrestled him and Giant Baba too in Japan,
Hmm.
and that was huge. So I like I said, I've had the greatest life ever. I've wrestled the top guys in wrestling that I could ever have wrestled. So yeah, it was quite the honor of being with him at the end of his wrestling career.
Very cool. And I heard you mention this, and I didn't ask you about this the first time, but how important was Ivan Koloff with the Crusher Khrushchev character? How important was he in developing you as a talent that was ready to go?
Ivan, I've had great partners, and when I got to um, Crockett's territory, I thought I was pretty seasoned at that time. I've had, probably 400 or 500 matches, but it just seems like everybody that you are with, you keep learning and learning and learning. And when I got with Ivan, that was when I started doing hour matches in the ring, him and I. And he taught me so much in the ring. It was like I never even knew what I was doing before. It was like earlier when I was telling you, you can know all the moves and everything, but to know how to put them all together in a match,
Hmm.
well, he helped me out a lot. So that kind of just gave me put me up to another level is what Ivan did. And he was just such a great guy.
He was. I'm going to tell you a quick story. I had Mick Foley booked for an interview, and last minute, not his fault, he did make good later on. He canceled on me on a scheduled thing that was live at the time. And I was like, oh man, what am I going to do? And I had Ivan Koloff scheduled for the next week. I called him up and I said, are you available? Because I'm kind of in a bind. He said, sure. He did it. And he said, anytime anybody cancels on you, call me up. I have more stories to tell. And it's like, for that quality of guy to offer that to me was just so amazing. And it kind of let me in on what a quality of human being he is, or was, I should say, unfortunately.
Did he ever talk about me?
He did. He praised you. He praised you a lot. It's a matter of fact. Yeah, I can try to find the audio and send that to you if you're interested.
Did I ever tell you a story about me and him driving home from up in Richmond, Virginia?
It doesn't ring a bell.
Well, it was one of the weekend deals where we were at TV. We probably wrestled 2 or 3 times.
Mhm.
We flew back to Charlotte, and we had a show that night in Richmond, Virginia, which was I think that's about 300 miles or something from there. So we were pretty tired. We got there, we wrestled, we were on like, second to the last or last. And the next day we had to be in Charleston, South Carolina,
Mhm.
which was about 550 miles. So we thought, well, let's drive back to Charlotte and stay at home in our own bed, and then the next morning go there. So we leave the building. I'm driving the rental car. Yeah, it was a rental car. I'm driving the rental car, and I'm so tired, and I'm starting to doze off a little bit. And I said to Ivan, I said, Ivan, how do you feel? He goes, oh, I feel like $1 million. I said, great. And I said, do you mind if can you drive a little bit? And I hated to have anybody else drive,
Mhm.
but I got out of the car and I was, kind of shaking my head, and it was a little bit chilly out that night. He gets in the driver's seat, and I said, Ivan, you doing okay? I got to take a nap. He goes, yeah, everything's fine. So he's driving, and I'm making like I'm sleeping, but I got one eye open. I'm looking at him, and Ivan's head starts bobbing up and down. And I look at him and go, Ivan, you doing
Uh-oh.
okay? He goes, oh, yeah, I feel like $1 million. I said, are you sure? You look like you're a little tired. He goes, no, I feel great. So I'm making like I'm sleeping, and I'm looking at him, and all of a sudden his head drops down and he's out cold.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
And we got the car on cruise control about 70 miles an hour. I reach over and I grab the wheel, and I'm driving down the road with him sleeping at 70 miles an hour. And I didn't want to wake him up because I didn't know if it'd startle him and
Jerk the wheel or something.
So it seemed like about 10 minutes, but it was probably only about, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, whatever.
Hmm.
So all of a sudden he opens his eyes and he grabs the wheel. And I look at him, I said, Ivan, how you feeling? He goes, man, I feel like $1 million. I said, well, I suppose you just slept for a half hour driving. He couldn't believe that he fell asleep. And I said, Ivan, you were out cold.
Oh my goodness.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Well, we talked about the Sickles. We talked about the studs. Now let's talk about the stolen cars. You were the repo man, which was an interesting character. Everything was a little more cartoony in the early 90s WWE, but you made it work. And I really enjoyed the character. How did you enjoy shedding the face paint for the bandit mask?
You know, it was great. It was a kind of a part of my career where I didn't need to be a top guy. I I wanted to work with the top workers, And when I was with Vince, we talked about that, and I knew the character wasn't going to be, a Hulk Hogan or Ultimate Warrior or, Bret Hart or whatever. But I knew I was going to be part of everything and I could have fun with it and eventually turn babyface.
Hmm.
So I was pretty excited about the gimmick, and I think I fooled a lot of people. They didn't know who I was at first. And that's where I thought, you know, the way I portrayed that gimmick really was a great feeling for me because it worked for me,
It
if that
did.
makes sense.
It does. And you crouching when you walked, it made it seem like you were almost shorter, so you didn't immediately go, "Oh, that's just Smash." You didn't, as a kid, watching it because I was 10 when it happened. You
Right.
didn't kind of immediately connect those dots. And there wasn't Google back then, so that was the
Right.
other.
Well, and then I was, 320 pounds when I was Smash, and I got down to 260 pounds when I was a Repo Man. So I was a whole different person.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
What was the reason for the massive weight loss?
Well, I wanted it to be a different character, which it was.
Oh, awesome. Now
You
you
know, that,
mentioned, go ahead.
and that way, I could work a little different. I could do things a little different.
Very cool. You mentioned you could turn it babyface, and Demolition was always cool. Even if you guys were bad and beating up Tito Santana, we still were cheering you because you guys were just so cool. Did you prefer to be a babyface or did you prefer to be a heel?
Well, I always preferred to be a heel, but when we were the Demolition, I think we were such good heels. The people liked it, and I think they were kind of making us baby faces. We never wanted to turn baby face, but it just kind of happened where, I think Vince wanted to push us as baby faces, so that kind of made the turn for us. But yeah, we still as baby faces work like heels, so it's, every once in a while we look at the crowd and get a cheer out of them, but it wasn't something where we really switched to be a baby face.
Very cool. You were one of the many 80s level WWE guys that moved on to WCW. And I got to tell you, when Hulk went and you went and a lot of other guys went, I went with you guys. I was a fan of WCW. That was my, if there's tribalism back then, if that's what it was called, I was a WCW diehard. You had an up and down run with them, especially concerning the firing, but did you see WCW as ever really competition to WWE?
When the NWO was there, I thought that was really, was huge, but I didn't think it was going to last
Mm,
because Vince was just smart as heck. I mean, this guy was a genius in the wrestling business. He made it happen, and he was there for the long run. And it was almost like WCW was just, you know, how do kind of like hot shot in the territory.
mm.
What was going to be next after the NWO? That was as high as it was going to be, and then it could only go down. It wasn't going to go up. Where Vince, he gets it real high, it comes down a little bit, but then he gets it even higher, and it just keeps going. So when I was there, I knew it wasn't going to last forever.
Mm. And I mentioned it already, but the King of the Road match with Dustin Rhodes and the um, illogical reaction to that match that resulted in your firing, and I believe Dustin's firing as well. Um, I'm assuming that's going to be in the book as well, and I'm looking forward to that chapter. But any thoughts on that as I mentioned that to you? Does that like still stick in your craw at all?
It does, and lately I've been doing, quite a few interviews, and people are asking about it. And I was always the guy that whatever the office wanted me to do, I would do. I never gave anybody problems. I just wanted to work hard, make money, and have a good time in the business. And that's what Dustin and I thought we were doing that night. We had a blast in the ring. And Mike Graham was the one who came up with that match, and
Hmm.
so he got fired that night also.
Oh my goodness.
But we never thought that we were going to get fired for working our asses off. And I thought that gimmick was going to be able to be a main event gimmick, working with anybody who came in there. If it was Hulk, if it was Ric Flair or whoever, and it cut me short to where I wasn't able to work with those guys. And that's what really upset me the most about it.
Now, that was a violent match that caused that. Now, the same broadcasting company, TBS, TNT, HBO, whatever you want to call them these days, just had a pay-per-view where one wrestler tried to drown another wrestler in a fish tank. It
Unbelievable, isn't it?
it's kind of crazy to think that 30 years, almost, just over 30 years, and you're seeing attempted homicide on TV, and that's okay. But what you guys did was not okay.
Yeah, and they spent a lot of money on our match too. I mean, they had helicopters and they had trucks with cameras. They had the semis. I mean, they spent a lot of money on our match, and then to get fired for that was just incredible. And I don't know if there was more to it than what they said it was, but we'll never know.
Absolutely. You were gone from WCW for a while. You came back with a gimmick I loved. It was my reason for videotaping WCW Saturday Night and watching, fast forwarding through to see just your match, to see Hole in One Darsow. I enjoyed the character. Did you have hopes that it could go further than that, or did you kind of know that it was just going to be a Saturday night kind of thing?
I know it was just going to be a Saturday night kind of thing, but um, I was trying to get a hold of John Daly, and that was is at that time I was a pretty good golfer. I mean, not pro golf or anything, but I was better than the average golfer, let's put it that way. And I really wanted to end my career getting to play celebrity golf tournaments. And I was already doing, different golf tournaments around the country, just to raise money for people and all that. And I thought if I could get John Daly to be my manager, then I could really make something of that gimmick.
Mhm.
It's it was one of those things that, it was fun and I knew it wasn't going to last long, but it was worth doing. I was around the guys, made some money and had a good time.
All right. Well, we'll circle back to the book now. Just talking a little bit about that. Was there any when you're writing the book, was there anything that you put in the book that maybe you hoped people would learn about you that fans, even fans that have been around pretty much since the beginning, like myself, maybe didn't know about you?
Well, maybe in there that, I don't know. It's hard to say. My mom was a huge, huge part of my life. She backed me all the way. And when I was in like fifth grade, my parents divorced, and we were pretty broke at the time. But my mom had me, in baseball, football, hockey, and she backed me. She was at all the sports, did everything. She was a huge part of my life, and that's what was in the book too.
Mhm.
And she gave me a lot of opportunities that I wouldn't have had, and it was with no money. And she didn't even have a vehicle. So I had to catch rides with people. I had to walk everywhere, and my brother and my sister were huge, huge help in my life also. But yeah, and God, I believe in God, and I don't know if people knew that,
Mhm.
but it's not like I'm a real religious person or anything, but I definitely believe in God. So that's what's in there too.
Very cool. I'll wrap up with two last questions. One you probably get asked a lot. In fact, I know I asked you last time. I can't tell you the amount of hours I spent on social media, forums before that, arguing on the behalf of Demolition from those that just say, oh, just were knockoffs of the Road Warriors. I hate that. I really don't see that. But all these years later, 20 years later, do you still, almost 20 years later, since our last interview, what is your reaction when you hear people say that?
It's kind of strange because why would they say that? I mean, you
I guess
know,
just the face paint and being big guys. That's really the only
yeah,
sole
the
purpose.
Road Warriors were our friends,
Hmm.
and both Bill and I love those guys. It, yeah, it's just kind of strange because we were our own selves. Our interviews were different. We worked different. We, I suppose you could say that about anybody. If I slam somebody and somebody else slams somebody, I suppose they would say, "Hey, you're a ripoff of that guy." If I arm drag some, I mean, you could just go on and on. So it must be that they kind of like the Road Warriors more than us, you
All right.
know. and which is fine. That's great. But, rip-offs of them, I don't see that. And, I think that's kind of hurtful.
I do too. And like I said, I've spent far too much of my time arguing with people online, which, has anybody ever convinced anybody to change their mind by arguing online? I wonder that. But
Yeah.
final question for you, because I know you got to get on to another one here in just a moment. And it's kind of a layup, and it's simply this. Where can people pick up the book?
Okay, it's on Amazon, and you can go there and you can get a Kindle version, or you can get the softcover copy. It's 300 and some words. Please buy it. It was a lot of fun doing it, and there's a couple of good stories. I got a million other stories that I couldn't get in here, otherwise it'd be too big of a book. But it's a fun read. So
maybe save
go to
it for a
Amazon
volume
and
two.
order it. And then if I'm at shows, I'm going to be bringing a few of them in to autograph and everything. So you'll be able to get it at some of the shows too.
Beautiful. Maybe a volume two for the other stories that you left out.
Well, you know what? Axe and Smash are getting ready to write a book about Demolition. So
Ooh.
it'll be all Demolition. It'll be just stories of us. And we've already talked about it. So that's kind of next in the works.
Sounds like fun. All right. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to do this with me and putting up with my nerves regarding Zoom. Not my usual format, but I appreciate you doing this with me. And let's see you in another 19 years. We'll do it again.
James, thank you. It was great talking to you again. And I appreciate it too.
I appreciate you. Hey, thank you so much.
This is Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Interactive Wrestling Radio. Oh, Rush.
Featuring the interactive interview.
Interactive interview.
Interactive interview.
Interactive interview.
Interactive interview.
Interactive interview. Interactive interview. Oh, yeah.
Formerly The Blaze.
The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze.
The Blaze.
The Blaze.
The Blaze.
The Blaze. The Blaze. The Blaze rock.
You're a maniac, so what you gonna do when a Blaze of Mania runs wild on you?
On WrestlingEpicenter.com.
Wrestling Epicenter.
Wrestling
Epicenter. Wrestling
Epicenter.
Wrestling Epicenter.
Wrestling Epicenter. The Wrestling Epicenter. Don't get off.
And now we shamelessly name drop from our history.
The Wrestling Epicenter would like to apologize for the following.
All right, everybody. Viva la raza. Viva la raza.
Hey, y'all.
Hello, ladies.
Hey guys, we had a lovely conversation.
First lady.
Absolutely. Oh, look at me. She's so kooky.
Be there. Where else?
Interactive
Wrestling Radio.
Wrestling.
Epicenter.
Oh my God, you win! Love being interactive.
I was not shooting. Yeah, almost this one, man. Breaking neck. I got 2 words for you. I've heard a lot about you guys. Excuse my language. You're gonna go to the shop. You know, into the many.
No nerves.
That was great. It's gonna be cool. What it's all about. The purest point of view. The living legend. Champion. Arrogant.
Jesus makes me
Instead of statement, I'm talking to you.
so lonely without you.
In the land of extreme.
Testify. Nevermore. Interactive interview. I'm not just the best. Interactive interview with a plastic
You
head.
earned the right.
Nobody. You better keep listening. Thank you very much. Controversy creates cash. Professional
Made
wrestling.
in the USA, baby.
Memphis wrestling. The guy on fire. I'm not going to talk to you, dummies.
We were sexy.
What a show.
One and only.
Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Wrestling
Epicenter. Interactive interview. We took care of the business. This isn't ballet. We are huge. You're where it's at. You better recognize who's the best. Make sure you tune in each and every week. I'll come out of your computer. Knock down your door and turn it on for you. Or else I'm going to kick your stinking teeth in. And that's the bottom line.
Have a nice day. It's showtime!
Don't forget to like and subscribe.